start listening to God as he's speaking to me the other day, and I start thinking about this concept, Anthony McCreary, of the new north. A new north, a new north. So let me get started. Welcome back to Open Mic Night right here on the Intellectual Stew, where we have real talk about real life, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. You know, I'm your host, James Kirkland, a man who knows what it feels like to be stuck, broken, and unsure of what's next. Let me be honest with you tonight. Let me be real with you. There was a time in my life, what's good, bro? Right after my divorce when I was literally stuck. Not just emotionally stuck, but I was physically stuck. I was numb. I was literally sitting on my couch every day. That's why I wrote the book, Stuck on the Couch, questioning who I was, what I had left or what I had lost, and where I was going. I didn't like my situation. I didn't like my mindset. I was circling the same thoughts over and over and then one day I had an epiphany. God whispered something in my ear. He whispered something in my spirit that literally changed everything. You know what he said to me, Brittany? He said, "You've been here long enough. It's time to get up." That was the beginning of my new north. And that's what tonight is all about. Hey, what's up, Tanitra? How you doing? Dr. Williams. But here it is. And let me tell you what the new north is. The new north is that moment when God tells you that you have circled this mountain long enough. Now turn north. Because understand, the new north is not just about location. It's about transformation. It's when the children of Israel knew what it meant to be stuck. They had been freed from Egypt, delivered from slavery by God's mighty hand. But instead of stepping directly, thank you all for sharing it. Y'all heart it, like it, share it, please. But instead of stepping directly into their promise, they wandered in the wilderness, not because God failed them, but because of fear, disobedience, unbelief, complaining. All of those things kept them stuck. And you know what they did? They ended up circling the same mountain for nearly 48 years, 38 years. They circled the same mountain. But guess what happened while they were circling the mountain? 4 generations died. Because see, God said that there was a certain segment, old ways, old ideas, old habits, old ways of living, old ways of thinking. He said all of those things have to die before they could go into the promised land. So because they complained, they had to go back into the wilderness, and for 38 years, things had to die so that they could go into, let me tell you something, as you go into your new north, as you go into your place of promise, because let me drop this one on you for free. All of us have a purpose. I don't care who you are. Grandmama and them said it like this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. God gives a light to everyone that comes into the world. We all have a purpose. And most of us, once we find our purpose, we move towards that purpose. But until we, thank you, Holy Spirit, until we start to operate in the purpose that God has designed for us, what we end up doing is we end up wandering just like the children of Israel. See, the children of Israel were right on the brink of their blessing. But you know where they messed up? They tried to assess what God told them to access. How many times have you messed up trying to assess what God told you to access? He gave you the promise, gave you the roadmap, showed you what the end was going to look like, told you to stay on the yellow brick road. But instead of accessing it, you start trying to assess it. You know what they decide? They decide they're going to pick out 12 spies. and the 12 spies were going to go scope it out. See, the book of Deuteronomy, it's the book of repetition. A lot of what happened in Numbers and all the other books, they begin to repeat some of those themes in Deuteronomy. And so they're showing the story of when the 12 spies went to scope out the land, but instead of focusing on the grapes, they decided to focus on the giants. And so instead of focusing on fruit, we end up feeding our fear, and we miss the promise. And because they missed the promise, God said, you got to go back into the wilderness, because you can't go to the next level if you haven't whipped the last devil. You can't go to the next level if you haven't learned the past lesson. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So because they didn't get it the first time, oh, I'm feeling this tonight, they had to go around 38 more years, because God said, if I can't, watch this, if I can't get Egypt, I got you out of Egypt, but I couldn't get Egypt out of you. So I got some people, those of you all who are associated with Egypt, I'm going to leave you right where you are in the wilderness. Can I drop this one on you for free? It's some people that still have Egypt inside of them that you're going to have to leave in the wilderness if you want to go to the promise. I'm just talking to somebody. Talk. I'm talking. Can we talk? Can we talk for a moment? Can we talk? Because what happens is there will come a time. And that's what happened in Deuteronomy chapter 2. And that's what gives me hope. Yeah, some of y'all haven't liked this post yet. Like it, heart it, share it, do something for me. But watch this. See, that's what happens in Deuteronomy chapter 2. After they had, watch this, after they had come past the same mount. Compass means circle. That means going through the same thing over and over again. That means going through the motions over and over again. That means going through the motions over and over and over and over again. And can I tell you something? Anything if you continue to do the same thing over and over again, expecting to get different results, that kind of sounds like insanity to me. Does that make sense? Yeah. But after they had compassed the mountain for 38 years, nearly 40 years, you know what God says? God says, watch this. Watch this. God says, you've compassed this mountain long enough. Isn't it good news to know that at a certain point, God will look at your situation and say, you've compassed, or you've been in it, or you've gone through it. In fact, how many of you ever had a moment in your life where God literally said, you've been through this enough, now it's time for you to go into another direction? That's right, Brittany, stuck on being stagnant. So many people stuck in the same place, going through the same thing. Look like to me, Brittany, this is just me talking. This is my logical thinking mind. That's just how I think. Look like to me, if I'm compassing the same rock for 38 years, look like somebody would have looked up and said, ain't that the same rock we passed last year? I mean, haven't we been around? Haven't we? And look like if you keep going through the same thing, look like at some point you ought to say, I'm tired of going through this. I mean, I made the same mistake. One thing Pops taught me, he taught me that choices and consequences were cousins, right? They were connected, right? And so if I make a choice, then I have to be able to live with those consequences. And so if I continue to go through the same thing over and over again without watch this, here it is, without having some type of self-awareness, then I will continue to wander. And see, instead of wondering, they should have been wondering, why are we going through the same thing over and over again? Because you didn't learn the lesson. And that's why a lot of us go through the same thing over and over again, because we failed to learn the lesson. But then at a certain point, thankfully, God says, that's enough. It's time to change direction. And you know what that is? That's a shift. That is a divine pivot. In fact, that was their new north. And see, here you are, somebody now listening under the sound of my voice. Some of you right now are circling your mountain. I don't know what your mountain is, but some of you are circling your mountain. You're stuck in a relationship, stuck in that same relationship cycle. You're stuck in a mental rut, or you're stuck in a spiritual drought. Seems like you can't produce. Just like you're not where you should be, but you've gotten comfortable in the pain. Let me see what that. Discernment has to be a part of our divine growth process. It's right. And you know what? You know, and I hear you on that, Brittany, because discernment, it should be. And if we don't have discernment, at least we should have perception, right? At least the proper perception. See, discernment, depending on your faith, you know, I kind of believe that's a spiritual gift. And I know God gives gifts to those whom he chooses to give those to. And some people, I think, minimize and dilute some of the spiritual gifts. Now, true enough, I think we all have spidey senses, and we should have a sense of perception. And a lot of times our perception is based on our realities and our orientation and what we've been exposed to, because it's hard to become something that you've not been exposed to and you haven't been embraced, right? So if you've had a limited perspective, it's because you probably had limited exposure. I don't know. I don't know where that came from. I'm sorry. I said it. I shouldn't have said it. Anyway, some of you right now still circling your mountain, stuck in that relationship cycle. Just like me after my divorce, you knew not where you should be. You know you're not where you should be. But what happens is you become comfortable in the pain. And the way you get comfortable, and because you're comfortable in the pain, you find something to self-medicate. Because while you're in the pain, you got to do something to numb the pain, right? Because nobody just really, now sometimes we kind of associate ourselves with the pain, and we expect pain to be a part of our life, but pain is not natural, right? That isn't something we should have to get used to. But some of us do it because we keep on circling. Yeah, Hennessy will do it. Hennessy will do it. If you like that brown, you know, some people, Hennessy will do it. Some people like a little more clear, you know, different ways, but that's their way of numbing the pain. And right now, tonight, I want to speak to you to the part of, you know, here it is. Let me say it like this. I want to speak to the part of you, Brittany, that knows that you can't, that the part that says, I can't stay here. I need to speak not to the mask, because a lot of us wear masks because we want to look the part. You know, we don't want people to know we're hurting. That's why Brittany Arnold's on right now. And I really have come to admire Brittany through social media, because I've seen how transparent she has been with her journey. And so when I told her I was talking about New North tonight, that's why I specifically asked her to come on, and she was like, what's that? And, you know, she didn't say it, she texted, I'm sorry, or inboxed it. And I explained it. She's like, oh yeah, I'll be there. Because I think some of us are in a real place of transition. I told you a couple of weeks ago that some of us are about to experience some major breakthroughs. Don't get caught up in the war. Don't get caught up in the politics right now. Because we're a part of a different remnant, right? We're part of don't get caught up in that. That's not, don't get caught up in that. That's all I got to say about that. I'm not going to fight you theologically. I'm not going to do that. Bless your heart, run with it, however you want to do it. But get ready for the blessing that's getting ready to be bestowed upon you, because it's literally going to blow your mind. I don't know why I'm hearing it, but for some people, your blessing is going to be like an overnight blessing. You're going to look up tomorrow and everything will have changed. Trust me when I tell you, but you got to get ready to transition from your wilderness. That's what I've definitely been uncomfortable, because, thank you, Brittany, because frustration precedes fruitfulness. Frustration, right? Somebody put that in the chat. Frustration precedes fruitfulness. You need to put that on Facebook and tag me when you say it. Frustration precedes fruitfulness. You get frustrated right before God takes you into the fruitful place that he's about to take you. And you're going to discover that you're getting ready to experience a new north. Hear me when I tell you on that. Hear me when I tell you. And you know what's going to happen? Just like my shirt, you're going to get on the path to better. When I was stuck on the couch, I knew, and listen, I got the link in the chat. Avery, if you're there, come on, jump up here for a minute. Come up here for a minute, Avery, if you're there. Go ahead. Yeah. Avery, the link is right there. I want Avery to come up here for a minute if you're there. Because I think so many people have gotten so comfortable with pain that they think their life is synonymous with pain. So they don't believe that better exists. That's why when I first introduced this hashtag, I want some of y'all to answer this in the chat. But when I first introduced this hashtag, one of the first things I said was, how are you going, and if listen to the video when I played it sometimes before the show, I say, how you going to do better if you don't know what better looks like?